Okay, hello guys, welcome to Garande channel. In today's video we are going to learn about Android. We are going to learn about Android patterns, architecture patterns, and in one of the patterns that we are going to learn about today is Mvvm, that is Android Mvvm. Generally Mvvm stands for Model-View-Model. Mvvm stands for Model-View-Model architecture. It's a pattern that is derived from MVP, that is a model view presenter, model view presenter pattern. So the main reason why we always go for such patterns, why you may choose to go for Mvvm pattern, that the Android Mvvm pattern, is the reason to make your project loosely coupled, whereby in case you remove maybe a UI feature from your project, it is not so affected. You don't have to edit, or let me say change many files within your project. Okay, and also to make your project or your code easily maintainable. Many developers find it so difficult when it comes to maintaining their code. The code which you wrote today, after maybe a month or 2 months, you even don't want to look about that code. Why? Because the code looks ugly in front of you. Okay, why does it look ugly? It is ugly because you didn't, the pattern which you used, maybe it wasn't good, didn't favor you well. Okay, also when you try to give this code to somebody else, you find out that person maybe will be forced to rewrite this code. Okay, will be forced to write this code. It will be hard for that pattern, for that person to maintain the code. Okay, also while using these such patterns, let me say the Mvvm pattern, it becomes very easy to add in a new feature without affecting any other file, to add in and remove any feature without affecting any file. Also testing can be easy, so you can decide to focus on maybe on the UI and you just test only the UI. Also maybe you can decide to focus only on the business logic of the application, and you test only that part without testing the whole application. Okay, in starting with the Mvvm, in starting to know the Mvvm part of it, we can begin with the model, or what is called the data model. Okay, generally the data model, this is the one that is responsible for fetching or catching information. Okay, is that which is responsible for fetching or catching data from the APIs, let me say the web services or local databases. Okay, let me try maybe to this is just responsible for fetching and catching data that is needed in the application. This data may come from the web services. Web services can be maybe an online database, maybe an online server, or can be a REST API, maybe from a REST API. Or this data may come from maybe our local databases, that is the SQLite. Also maybe the data can also come from the shared preferences. Okay, hence this part is only responsible for fetching that data which is needed for the application. Generally it handles the data model, or the data model handles the business logic of the application. Okay, its work is to handle only the business logic of your application. It doesn't know anything about the UI. It doesn't know who needs this data. Its work is just to fetch this data and have it. If maybe it's needed to be pushed, its work is just to push the data. It doesn't care where this data is coming from. Okay, What it cares about, where is the data going? That's what it cares about. It doesn't even know who is using the who is using the data, which activity, which fragment, which UI element is using this data. Okay, so that's the data model. And such data models can be in the form of maybe POJO, that is the plain old Java objects, can be maybe the DTO, the data transfer objects, and also maybe the entity objects within the room, within the room databases. Okay, that's what a data model is. That's what a data model is, or a model is. Now moving to the view model. View model, this is the part which communicates. This is the part which communicates with the view and the model and the data model. It acts as a bridge between the view. Okay, it acts as a bridge between the view and the data model. Okay, so if the view, if our activity, if our button wants to maybe to send data to maybe to the database, this button or this UI element will communicate to the data model via the view model. Okay, it will communicate to the data models via the view model. Its main work is to retrieve data it is to retrieve data from the data models and making it available to the views via observables, as in form of observables or LiveData, or what we can call LiveData. It presents this data in form of observables such that the views can consume it. Okay, and okay, the way this view model can take data from the views is in form of events. Okay, the way it communicates in form of events and states. Okay, events and states. That's how it works. Its main work is it acts as a presentation. Its main work is to handle the presentation logic of your application. The presentation logic. How is this data presented to the view? That's its main work. It handles the presentation logic of your application. Now, when we come to the view part of the application, as you hear the view, these are activities. These are fragments. Okay. These are activities, these are fragments, these are dialogues that render this data, which is coming from the view model, or which is coming from the data model via the view model to the user. Its main work is to render this to render the data which is coming from the database, or which is coming from the view models. Okay, and also taking the actions from the users. Okay, maybe a button clicked, and notifying the view model that such and such a button has been clicked, and maybe it applies such and such an action. Now, as we can see, our data model doesn't communicate in any way with the view. Okay, that means that you can add any element, or remove any element, any UI element from your application without the data model being affected. Okay, it means that you can change your database. Let me say, if you're using Firebase, you can shift from Firebase and go to AWS. Go maybe use any other database architecture of your own. Maybe you can shift from any API to another. Maybe you can shift from using a local database to something different. Okay, without tampering with the UI code. So the communication is only between these two parts. Is only between these two parts. If the view needs something, it will communicate it will communicate via the view model. Okay, to communicate via the view model, and maybe in case it needs some data, then that's when the view model will communicate with the data model to get the data, the necessary data needed. Okay. To better understand this architecture, we are going to do this by implementing maybe an authentication, implementing authentication, and other features that will be needed for you to learn, or for you to know everything that you need to know on how to use this architecture. Okay. So for that, I've created, I just have this empty project. It has nothing, totally it is empty. So what we are going to do, we are going maybe to implement Firebase Authentication on this with this project using the Mvvm pattern. Okay, we are going to use the Mvvm pattern to do an authentication. The authentication that we are going to do is going to be a double authentication. That is with Firebase, a double authentication with Firebase, where we are going to use phone number and Google account, Google login part. So to get started, one thing you are going to do, just create a project. For me, I already have one, and also I'll request you guys to connect your project to Firebase. You are going to connect your project to Firebase. I think I've already connected this one to Firebase. Okay, so let's get started. To get started, we are going to first of all add some some dependencies within our application. We are going to add the dependencies. Those are lifecycle dependencies. I think I'm going to include the link for these dependencies in the description part. Okay, so we shall need this part. We shall need the lifecycle version. I think I can just include it up here. We shall also we shall need the view model and LiveData. These two. Include them there. Well, also maybe one last part which is optional. This annotation, the annotation processors. This is just optional, but for that part we can include it there. So these are the three dependencies that that you need to use to use Mvvm pattern within your application. Now, if you're a fan of RX Java and RX Android, you can also include it there. So for this authentication part, we are just going to use LiveData strictly, but also you can use RX Java to communicate to make communications between your views and your view model, to expose your data. Also, one last thing is to add Firebase dependencies. I think let me just add some Firebase dependencies. We shall need analytics. Let me just take this whole part. Analytics, Firestore, auth. Yeah. This is Firebase. Let's try just clean this. Okay, so for now we can go with that. So we can sync our project. as it is syncing. So we I think it is okay as it is syncing. So what we are going to do, we are going to add some extra packages within our application. Okay, so we are also going to apply the repository pattern within our application for a better architecture. We are going to use also the repository pattern. So this is what we are going to do. We are going to need or we shall add some new packages. One is going to be ViewModel. Also we are going to add another, which is the model, or we can just call it DataModel. Okay, just model. Another one is going to be the repositories. Also the most important one is going to be the views, and within the views, that's where we can find our activities. Also, that's where we can also find maybe the fragments. I'm just putting them fragments. I'm just putting them there in case you need them. Okay. So after adding that, let's move this main activity into activities. I'll refactor that. It has been shifted. Also maybe an extra package that we may need is the utility package. This is just important for any project. It's very important to include the utility. Okay. This is all. This is the structure, the project structure that we need. Okay. This is the structure. So to continue with this, we are going to begin with the splash screen. The splash screen. This is the first screen to be shown to the user. When the application opens. Now within the splash screen, that's when we can check maybe if the user is authenticated. Maybe that's when we activate some important files for this application. Okay. So let's begin by creating a new activity, which is going to be the splash activity. New. Kind of slow. The app is kind of it is still syncing. Let's give it some few seconds as it syncs. Okay, it has. I think it has finished. So we are going to add an empty activity. And this activity, we are just going to call it a splash activity, or you can call it a splash screen. Splash activity. Oh, we forgot. The splash activity has been created, and generally we don't need even the is layout file. We shall not need is layout file. Splash activity layout file. Let's delete it out. I forgot to remove it from there. Okay. Import this. Okay, that is important. So for this part, we are going to remove it. Set content view. And also one major thing that we need to do for this activity is it is going to be a launch activity. So for that case, we are just going to add intent filters, actions, that is Android name, one for the main file, just to make it ready to be the launch activity. Okay, let me just copy this. And put it there, so even we don't need this part. We can just terminate it from here and kill out this. Okay, another thing that we need to do on this splash activity is to set the theme for it, which is going to be theme at style splash style splash theme. Splash theme. Okay, let's create this splash theme within our styles. This is styles name splash theme. The parent is going to be theme, no action bar. We shall not need okay, well, one, we shall not need the action bar, so it is going to be item name. Name is window action bar, that is Android window action bar. Here it is, and we are going to set it to false. Next is the title, window title, window no title, and we are going to set this to true. Third, we shall need this to be full screen. Full screen, that is window full screen. Here it is, and we shall set it also to true. And last, the most important one, which is the background of it, the window background. The window background, we shall use a drawable. Drawable is going to be a splash view or splash screen. Okay, let's just call it view, a splash view. So we can create this drawable. Can create this drawable. The root is the root element here is going to be layer list. Within the layer list, we need to set first of all its background, which is its background, that is the background color. We are going to say Android drawable. So for this case, we are going to use Android color white as our background. We are going to use a white background. Also, we need to say maybe to add a logo to this view. So for that case, logo. I've added the Firebase logo here. I've added the Firebase logo. This is what we are going to use for now, or you can use your own logo for that part. So this one is just going to be also a drawable, and the drawable is going to point at this logo file. Now this logo, we need it to be centered, so we shall set its gravity center. Give it we can give it a height which is around 100 dp. Give it a width, maybe 100 dp too. Okay, yeah, we can go with that for now. So generally that is that's our background theme. Hope is now so everything is now clear. So when the user opens our application, the first view is going to get is that splash activity with the Firebase logo on it. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is create an extra class, which is going to be the splash view model class. Oh, kind of freezing. Okay, so let's go on. We are going to create a splash view model class. So under view model, let's create a new class that is splash view model. Now to use now what you have to know when you're using the view, when you're creating the view models, it is important and it's mandatory to extend the view model, the view model interface, to extend view model. So here we are going to extend Android view model. You can only extend the view model only, is also okay. There is view model. There's also a life cycle for the view model. So for this case, I'm just going to extend the Android view model. Okay, so let's implement that. Okay. Also, we shall need a repository. Now this splash view model is that's going to talk with the splash screen, to talk with our splash screen, which is the splash activity here. And now if we need to check if the user, if you are checking if the user is authenticated, the splash activity is going to send a signal to the view model to verify if the user is authenticated. Then the view model talks to the repository or to the data model part of the application to verify if the user is authenticated. Now with this kind, the view model even doesn't know which authentication pattern are we using for our application. Are we using Firebase? Are we using Google login? What are we using? So it even doesn't know. For it, its work is to say, verify for me if this user is authenticated. And now that's when the repository is going to know knows how to verify that person. So let's create that repository class. Within repositories, you are creating a new class. The class is called splash repository. Yeah, for now we can just leave it there, and we come back to our view model. The first thing that we are going to do is to initialize the splash activity as splash repository. Initialize it here. Splash repository is equal to new splash repository. Okay, so that's it. So when we come to our splash activity, we said one thing that we need to do is to initialize the splash view model. So we shall say private splash view model, and here we shall say initialize splash view model. We shall create that. So with it, when initializing the splash view model is going to be splash view model is equal to new. Now when initializing a view model class within the activity or within any view or within any fragment, we use the view model the view model providers, which is that, and we pass in our activity. We pass in our activity or our context. Then we call the get, that will get for us the splash view model class. Okay. Now this is final. So here you have finished to initialize the splash activity, the splash view model, so you can communicate with it. So the next step after initializing the splash view model, we shall need to verify if the user is authenticated. Verify user authentication. Let's create that also. So for this we shall just call the splash view model that you know what, verify for us, verify user authentication. Or we can just say verify if user is authenticated. Verify if user, let's say just verify user authentication. So we shall just command it in that way. So let's create this. So okay, for this part, when we call to verify the user authentication, how will the okay, let me say this. Within our splash activity, we are calling verify user authentication. Now the main question is, how is our activity going to know that, you know what, this user is authenticated, so move to maybe to the next activity? How is it going to know? So for that part, within our view model, what we are going to do, we are going to expose some live data to the splash activity. So for that, we are going to create a live data, and the live data that we are going to create, public live data, is going to be a live data that is going to expose the user object. Unfortunately, we don't have this user created, so it's going to be a user object. So let's first of all create the user object. So within our model, we are creating the user object, and now we are just going to call it user. Okay, so this user is going to extend serializable. Sorry, it is implementing. It's going to implement the serializable, and we are going to have public string. So for now, for our user object, let's just give it a name. Let's our user just give him a name, the email maybe with a password, or user ID. Let's just call it a user ID. Okay, and also we need one important thing, which is a boolean. Is going to be boolean is authenticated. Okay, but one thing which we need to do on this is authenticated is when you are passing, maybe when you are creating this user, when you're passing this user object to Firestore, maybe to create this user, we need to exclude out this is authenticated part of it. So for that we are just going to say exclude. This one comes from Firestore, so we are going to exclude this. So when we are exposing this user object to Firestore, for this user to be created, this is authenticated part is going to be left out. So the next part is create the constructor. Using some shortcuts, we are going to create some two constructors, which is one empty constructor, and maybe the other is the one that is going to have these three things. Let me say what four things. Okay, 4. So that's our user object. Back to our view model, we are going to call this this user model, call it, and now this is going to be is user authenticated, is authenticated live data, or is user authenticated live data. Okay, we can okay, live data. So here what we are going to do is to say live data is okay, is user authenticated live data is equal to, we are going to call our splash repository to verify if this user is authenticated. Splash repository verify user authentication. Now the results of of user authentication is going to be stored in the authenticated live data. So let's create that. Okay, one thing here, first of all, we are going to initialize some required parts. Let's initialize the Firebase the Firebase auth private Firebase auth Firebase auth is equal to Firebase auth.get instance. Also, we shall need Firestore. That's where we are storing our users. Private for this case we are going to need the collection reference. Yeah, we are going to need the collection reference, so we are just going to say private collection reference users reference is equal to Firestore, which is Firebase Firestore dot get instance dot collection. Now here we shall need the collection path. So I usually I save my collection path within the user object, so we shall just come within the user object here and we create some static string, which is going to be public static string key table name, and now for that key table name is just going to be the users table name within our Firebase Firestore, within our Firestore database. So back to our repository. So for this case we are just going to say user dot key table name. Okay. Also, now, okay, one thing what you have to know is LiveData, with LiveData is unchangeable. Any data which is put on LiveData, which is exposed as LiveData, cannot be changed, cannot be edited. Okay, so it cannot be modified. So for it to be modified, we can a modified part of LiveData is using the mutable LiveData. Okay, for that case, instead of returning LiveData, we are going to return a mutable LiveData, which is still LiveData, mutable LiveData, or a modifiable LiveData. Okay, so for that case, let's see, first of all, initialize an empty mutable LiveData here, and this one is just going to be is authenticated LiveData, is authenticated, or okay, is user authenticated mutable LiveData is equal to new mutable LiveData. Okay, so to check one way to check if the user is authenticated is, first of all, calling the Firebase Auth to give us the current user, to know if that user is authenticated. So we are going to say Firebase user is equal to Firebase Auth dot get current user. Now, if the current user is null, let me say if the current user is null, is empty, it means that this person is not authenticated. For that case, it means that this user is not authenticated. Is not authenticated. So we are so since we are exposing out the user, the user. So one thing we are going to do is to create to initialize here the user, which is private user is equal to new user. Let's just initialize him here. So one thing we are going to say here, since this person is not authenticated, we're going to say user dot is authenticated. We are going to set it to false, and say is user authenticated. We are going to set its value to the current user that we created. Okay, now if this person is authenticated, else it means that this person is already authenticated. So we are going to set the is authenticated part to true. Okay, also set the current value of our mutable LiveData for is authenticated to the current user too. And then okay, to avoid just this repetition, we can just maybe carry this and put it here and clear out this. Okay, so we need to return the mutable LiveData. Return is user authenticated mutable LiveData. Okay, so that one return, it means after that one being returned with the view model, that's so our LiveData is going to get the current instance of the user after our repository verifying that the user is authenticated. So having that set, we need now to notify our main activity that, you know what, this user is now authenticated. Go to the main activity, or is not authenticated, go to go to the authentication activity. So within our splash activity, this part where we are verifying if the user is authenticated, what we are going to do is also to observe. We are going to say splash view model dot is authenticated live data. On this live data, we are going to observe any changes. So if there is any change, we are going to observe using this activity. Okay, we are going to observe using this activity, and I shall have that if there is any change. Oh, I guess some lower versions do not know these lambda expressions, so we are going just to replace the lambda expression with that. Oh. Now here we are observing changes on our live data within the view, on our live data which is coming from the view model. Now on observing the changes here, what we are going to do is to check if this user who is coming from our live data is having the user, maybe is the user authenticated. So we are going to check if user dot is authenticated is true. It means that we have to go to main activity. Let's create that, which is private. Else go to on activity. Now create also that activity. Okay, and at the end of this, we need to finish this activity. We need to close this activity. After listening to that, we need to close this activity. So going to the main activity, we are going to say intent is, we need to import that. Alter enter, we imported that, so is equal to new intent, passing in the splash activity dot this, that is our current context, and the main activity, which is our destination. So we shall call start activity intent. Also now for the auth activity, since we don't have it and is not there, let's try to create one. So creating a new activity, an empty activity. We're just going to call this one auth activity. Okay, auth activity, let's try to import that. Back to the splash activity, we are going to say intent is equal to new intent, splash activity dot this, then main activity dot class. Oh, sorry, it is auth activity, not main, auth activity, then start activity intent. Okay, so that's all what we need to what we need to do with this what we need to do with this activity. Okay, now here, if the user is authenticated, we are going to take him direct to the main activity, and if he's not authenticated, we are going to take him to the auth activity. So let's just try to distinguish between these two by just adding something simple. So for this part, we just maybe need the design only. So let's just try to okay, let's just add a text view. Layout, width, let's just match parent, and height. Width is matching parent, height is going to be wrap to content. So the text is going to be welcome to main up to auth activity, welcome to auth activity. That's what is just mainly going to do. We need to specify the constraints. You can just put it there, or copy the same, bring it to main activity. Oh, so already has this. So let's just edit this. We shall just call main activity. So that's it. Main activity, auth activity. Oh, this one is quite up, so maybe you can just try to center it. End of parent, start of parent, that is constraint start of parent. Is it the one? Let me just copy this. Where is it? I'll copy this here. And this one we're just going to wrap content also. That's it. So if the user is authenticated, we are going to go to main activity. If he is not authenticated, we come to auth activity. So let's try to run our project. Start. Let's try to build it, and we say still building. Oh, we have an error. Cannot fit required classes. I think for that part we are just going to add mult-dex here. Mult-dex. So in case you find such an error, this one cannot fit required classes, what you have to do is just to enable mult-dexing, which is going to be mult-dex enabled, true. And also coming down here, we are just going to add one extra file, one extra implementation, which is going to implement mult-dexing implementation. implementation, that's Android X dot multidex multidex the current version I think is 2.0, and just to make sure that everything is okay, Android X dot multidex. Yeah, so that's it. For that we can now run our project again. Oh, we forgot to sync. So syncing that. Oh, I think we had a successful sync. So for that case, let's try to run it again. So there we go, our application is launching. Oh, unfortunately it's stopped. Do you have any error? Let's check the logcat. It just stopped. Let's try to check for errors. I'm not understanding these errors, so let me just try to run the application again. Again, it has crashed. So here it is saying that the view model is having 0. The view model has no 0 constructor. Yeah, has no 0 constructor. Let's try to check. So the error is coming from here. Initializing the view model is having it's having no 0 constructor. So what we are going to do, let's try to review again the view model again and see where the issue is coming from. I think we are listening to is user authenticated live data. We are observing, but if you can check, the user authenticated live data is null. For this part is null. So okay, so let's see where the errors. I think everything just okay. Let's just try to initialize this is equal to new live data. Oh, no, where is the issue coming from? Annotations, do they have any issue? No, it's totally no issue here. Okay, let's try to run again. Running again. Still it crashed. Where is the issue coming from? Issue. I think what we are just missing is when we are trying to initialize this view model within the activity, we need to add something else, which will be a new view model, a new view model factory. And for that case, we are going to add new view model provider.android factory. And for this, you are just if you're using an activity, it is just okay to call just get application. But if you're using maybe let's say a fragment, whatever the case, you can maybe call context. If it is a fragment, you can call context.get get application, or the fragment itself.get application. So for this case, we need get application. Let's try to run that and we see. There we go. This time run, no errors this time run. Yeah, there we go. So it has brought us to auth activity. Why? Because we haven't authenticated the app. That is what is here. As we said, if the user is not authenticated, not authenticated, go to the auth activity. If the user is authenticated, go to the main activity. Okay, so that is what is happening. So that's it, guys, for this video. We shall end it here. So in the next video, we are going to see how to implement a double authentication using Firebase. We are going to use phone number authentication and Google sign-in or Google login credentials also at the same time. So see in the next video. But also don't forget to subscribe, hit the subscription and also the bell button to get the latest updates. Okay, so thank you guys, see you in the next video.